Guys, let's change gears a little bit and bring in Christian actor and author. Of course, he is someone each of us know, Kirk Cameron. He's got a new book. We're going to talk a bit about that in a minute. But Kirk, one of the things that comes to mind, and I'm so glad you're here, welcome, is this whole idea of this being a religious war. And when I think about what Hamas is doing, it speaks to religion to me, not spirituality. Religion is something that you do repetitively, but there's no real connection to anything that is holy.
Well, I think you've painted a good picture there of the difference between religion and relationship with God. You know, I came out of the religion of atheism. I like to say that I'm a recovering atheist today, and God graciously opened up my eyes. And I love the teachings of Jesus because they're so counterintuitive. We have people today who are at each other's throats and literally at war, brothers fighting against brothers in the Middle East and Russia and Ukraine and here in the United States. And Jesus would say things like, you've heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and do good to those who hate you. Bless those who persecute you, and you'll be like your Father in heaven. What does he do? He sends the sun on Israel and on the Palestinians. He sends the rain to water the crops of the righteous and the unrighteous. He said, be perfect, love, like your Father in heaven is perfect. So that's where my mind goes, especially for our children, because the images on the screen right now are terrifying to children. And what does that make them think about the future with the people with whom they disagree? Yeah. We've got to give them a better, and that's why I'm writing books for kids on how to love your enemies.
Yeah.
Well, Kirk, that transitions us, and by the way, great to see you, David Brody, here in D.C. That transitions us to the new book that you have written. And let's take a look at the wonderful cover, The Fox, the Fair, and the Invention Scare. So tell us more about this and really your heart for this book and for this time that we live in.
Well, I'm a dad with 6 children, and I want them to have a hopeful, positive, enthusiastic optimism about the future. And we've got to give them a reason for that. And I think that is going to be rooted in faith in God. Let me tell you a story. I was in Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago, and this story blew my mind. We were at a Restore America rally, and an older couple came to the microphone and shared with us their gut-wrenching story of how their teenage son was violently gunned down and murdered. They spoke of their faith in God that got them through. They then introduced a young man who came to the podium and said that he was a gang member. He was thrown in prison for a violent crime and was visited by the couple that introduced him. They revealed that they were the parents of the young man he had murdered. They came to tell God's mercy that they loved him. They didn't hate him. They were praying for him. And when he got out of prison, they legally adopted him as their son and brought them into their family. And he's talked about loving your enemies, and the forgiveness of God is what changed his life. That's not normal. Who does that? Yeah. And it's because of you and I recognizing that God loved us when we were his enemies through our pride and rebellion. That changes us. And now we can extend that olive branch to other people. That's what my book is about. And I think if we get that into the hearts and minds of children now, they can teach us a lesson by loving those with whom we disagree. And of course, once it gets to the war level, when it gets to the scope and scale that we see on the news now, we've got a genuine mess on our hands. And the only way I think we get out of that and untie that knot is by recognizing that we have already blown it so deeply, and we've got to get on our knees, humble ourselves, and cry out to the God of mercy to show us how to love those that disagree with us.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're writing about this because parenting is hard. I will be the first one to say it. I have 5 children, and I tell them all the time, love is not a word. Love is not a feeling. Love is an action. Show me your action. And so when you tie that into the images, in particular our teenage and college-age children are seeing now, splashed across their social media, how do you explain love your enemy who wants to, by the way, kill you? Yeah.
Like I said, when we get to the level of war, we get into a whole other realm. But I think on the personal level, you and I can learn from that couple that adopted their son's murderer into their family. Jesus himself goes to the cross to demonstrate love toward those who nailed him to that execution post. Again, this is not retribution. This is not justice. This is mercy that is transformative. And I need to do a better job of this personally. I have plenty of enemies out there, people with whom I disagree, and those who hate what I stand for. They show up in protest at children's readings at public libraries for my books. And what I'm doing is I'm now reaching out. I want to talk to atheists. I want to talk to leftists and progressives and even drag queens so that we can have a conversation over a cup of coffee about family values, about the rare and precious gift of liberty, and what kind of stories we should be reading to our children so they can have a blessed future. I want to reach out and do that and practice what I preach.
I'm sending
Kirk
hugs your
Cameron.
way, Kirk. I love that. Oh, my God. Sending hugs your way. Sorry, David. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Kirk, we got to wrap it up, but I really appreciate you being here. Once again, the book, if we can maybe put it full screen possibly, there it is, The Fox, The Fair, and The Invention Scare. I guess you get it wherever books are sold. Is that what I'm supposed to say, Kirk? Is that correct?
BraveBooks.com.
Say it again.
BraveBooks.com.